Hey neighbor, sorry to do this and sorry to bother you like this, but would you mind if I borrow some sugar?
Sure, I can get that for you.
Wow, thanks man. You're the best neighbor ever.
I expect nothing of this in return.
Hey neighbor, sorry to do this and sorry to bother you like this, but would you mind if I borrow some sugar?
Sure, I can get that for you. I expect every grain of this tenfold in return.
Your sugar tastes salty.
Now, which of these was a neighbor? Your test begins now.
This week's good question is found in the Gospel of Luke. And although we've looked at Luke before, we haven't gone into detail about who Luke was and the significance of his gospel. Luke was a physician, and we know this because Paul in Colossians 4 refers to Luke as a beloved physician. And there are a few other clues when we look at Luke's writing that give us a glimpse into his medical background. And we can see this by looking at Luke's accounts of miracles and healings, and how he uses a lot of medical descriptions to describe a lot of the miracles that Jesus is performing. So because Luke was a physician, he brings an interesting approach to the different miracles that Jesus performed, which is why Luke's gospel is filled with so many accounts of Jesus healing the sick, casting out demons, and performing other miracles that showcases his true divinity. What makes Luke and his gospel stand out is that he was not a disciple like Matthew or John, nor was he a scribe for Peter like Mark. Rather, Luke's gospel was written after Luke himself did a careful investigation. He talked to people who experienced Jesus and asked them a lot of questions about what happened. And the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts are both written by Luke, and they are believed to be two parts to the same story. For both the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts start off by addressing Theophilus, who Luke refers to as most excellent, which we believe would mean that Theophilus was a high-ranking Roman official. Luke's gospel has a few key themes throughout. If you read the Gospel of Luke, you'll notice themes including prayer, mercy and forgiveness, the kingdom of God, salvation for all, and compassion for the oppressed.
Coming to our good question, we find a lawyer trying to test Jesus, to whom Jesus responds with the parable of the Good Samaritan, found only in Luke's Gospel. Now, if you've been around church a while, this story is probably familiar to you, but we encourage you to pause the video here and go read Luke 10 verses 25 to 37.
Now Jesus tells of a man, assumably a Jewish man, who was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now the route from Jerusalem to Jericho was around 29 kilometers long, and it descended 3,200 feet. Now Jesus uses this route on purpose. That's because this route had a lot of long, rocky stretches, which was commonly used by robbers.
The priest walking down that road likely would have been going the same direction as the man, or away from Jerusalem. This priest would have been a religious leader and someone who maintained the temple and taught others. Him passing by and going over to the other side would likely have been from concerns of ritual purity after coming from the temple.
The term Levite refers to one from the tribe of Levi, who assisted priests and performed various tasks within the temple.
Now we come to the Samaritan. Samaria was north of Jerusalem, and the Jews and Samaritans did not get along, and their rivalry dated all the way back to the late 6th century.
Yeah, there was a few factors for that. First, the Samaritans were a racially mixed group of partially Jewish and partly Gentile. They had their own Pentateuch, they had their own temple which was outside of Jerusalem, and they had their own rendering of Jewish history. Now, a Jew would see a Samaritan as continuously unclean, and so coming in contact would mean that a Jew had become ceremonially unclean. Now, Samaritans had also assimilated non-Jewish culture into their own. And so there was mutual hatred between both Jews and Samaritans.
With all this information in mind, let's turn to our good question in Luke 10:36. Which of these three was a neighbor? And which one are you?
Do you see yourself acting like Christ calls us to act, like the Samaritan? Or do you see yourself as the priest or the Levite? And so we encourage you to think about this and to pray about this as we come into Sunday morning.
Why is this so hard for you guys?
But you know I have test anxiety.
And the dude in the house looks really cool in both videos.
You were literally in the video.
That's why the guys were so handsome in the video.
Oh, come on.
I can't. I'm leaving. I can't do this.
We got it.